the introduction part. So the reason we're all here today is because if you don't know, in 2014, Singapore launched an initiative called Smart Nation. And what is Smart Nation? Well, it's a lot of words, but the bottom line here is that how can we use technology to solve real problems and make a real difference in people's lives across the whole of society? That was the vision, which was most recently re-articulated by Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong in 2019. And so that's really the foundation of why we have hiring tech aggressively across the public sector. We are really committed in the government to use technology to better people's lives. And what does this mean? So digital economy, digital government, and digital society are the three broad pillars of Smart Nation. Digital economy means continuing to build a vibrant economy here in Singapore. Digital government means the government sort of optimizing data and software to deliver public services in a more efficient and effective manner. And finally, digital society means that our people outside of government use technology, have access to technology, and feel empowered by technology in their daily lives. So that's sort of the broad overview. But if you want to, this is our director's quote, he's not attributed, but it's from him. Basically, what we're really trying to do, this is the problem in the world today, that the best and brightest minds in tech, are they, this is a rhetorical question, are they working on the most serious and important problems, or are they working on things like shopping and entertainment? And this is a question, I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but our view in OGP and across the Singapore public sector is that the best and brightest minds must be engaged to work on the most serious problems that will really tangibly improve people's lives. So that's why you're all here today, and we really, are grateful that you're taking interest in this, and hopefully be keen to be part of the mission and vision that we are trying to promote today. So that's all for the introduction, and just a bit more about, you might be wondering, some of you may not be Singaporeans, may not have lived in Singapore very long, so why should I care about Singapore? Why should I care about the Singapore public sector? Well, Singapore is a small red dot in a huge global map. In most world maps, you can find us, but actually we are very generous in the way we try and support other countries and other governments around the world. These are some stats out there of how many we have actually helped through various technical cooperation programs. OGP and other government agencies also actively invite foreign governments to come to learn from us. We share advice, we build capacity in third countries. So working here in the Singapore public sector is not just limited, your impact is not just limited to Singapore, but you may have potential for global impact. And one last word, of course, we are hiring. You'll hear more about this later from all the agencies concerned, and you can ask them direct questions about this. And you saw the QR codes that Stephanie shared at the beginning. So all the jobs and roles available are listed there if you follow the links. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Preston, who is one of our software engineering managers here in OGP, and I will leave it to him to sort of invite and introduce the panelists and take it from there. Preston.
Thanks, Chia. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Well, I'm gonna invite the speakers up as well to come sit on these comfy couches. Yeah, come on up. And today's session will just be a short 30 minutes. And as you can see, there are 5 speakers. Let me grab another chair. Is there enough space? Okay, I'll just grab another chair. And yeah, so what we're gonna cover today is oh, it's not No. Okay, here we go. Okay, so yeah, what we're gonna do today is really keep things short and sweet. The point of this 30-minute session is to really give everyone here a quick taste of what it's like to work as a software engineer or engineer in the Singapore government across the various ministries and agencies. So we have a bunch of speakers from a variety of ministries and agencies. So maybe we'll start on the right. Maybe do a quick self-introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rhen. I'm working for CPFB. Currently, I'm supporting the call centers systems and also some of the speech analytic part of the system. So I think.
Talk a little bit more about the work that you do. Like, what does your team look like?
Okay, so what happened is my role in the company is actually the bridge between the system implementer, which is our SI, and also the business user who is using the systems. So in terms of our daily work job, we make sure that the system is running. That's one. Secondly, we also have the opportunity to explore new features. So maybe the system business user will say that, hey, this is some of the feature that they want to implement. So we will study the feasibility and advise them accordingly. And if it goes through, then we will work with the SI to implement the feature. Yeah, so that's roughly the.
Cool. Sounds great. So that's CPF. Runway from CPF. Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Runguang. I'm from IRAS. So in case you don't know, IRAS is like the tax authority of Singapore, and basically we collect tax to help contribute to nation building. So for myself, I'm from the IT department, of course. So we actually have a lot of projects that we do within our in-house team in the IT department. And the current project that I'm currently working on is one of the toughest projects that we have, which is to remodernize our entire tax system using cloud technologies. So it's really moving a very old on-prem system and trying to redo it into the cloud. So I'm currently taking out a role of a Scrum Master in one of the development teams. Yeah, thanks.
Very cool. Yeah, I think a lot of the work that the government is doing is trying to move, our system to cloud as we'll all continue sharing. And yeah, that's really, really great work. Okay. All right.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Chen from HDB. So basically I am working in the information services group of HDB, and I lead the application engineering section of HDB. So this section actually has been set up about 1.5 years ago. The main objective of this session is actually pretty much like what Runguang was saying earlier, to help to build up the cloud engineering capabilities, the in-source cloud engineering capabilities within HDB. So basically what my team does is my team explores all these different options of how to implement cloud-native architecture within HDB's application context, and then try to explore the different ways to do so, establish the solution patterns, and then through actual application development, try to verify some of these things. So as the lead of this section, what I basically do is act as an engineering manager. So I will take care of things like the capability development, things like the career progression, and also things like the product roadmap, product delivery of the team. Yeah. So I also work together with my tech lead to make things like the technical decisions, as well as to establish the processes for fellow developers. Yeah. Okay. So,
Hi everyone, I'm Samantha. I'm from Government Digital Services. It's a division in GovTech. I think maybe most famous for TT and SE.
What are TT and SE?
Trace together and safe entry. Probably everyone has used that at some point in the last 2 years. Our division does a lot of it's various projects, but BAU is mostly like giving money to citizens, doing grant disbursement, and also there are multiple parts of this division. One is maybe more citizen facing, like mobile apps. For example, one space. And then also that's the DQ division, and they're over there. And there is another part which is more maybe business facing. So I work on a project called Go Business, and we do things like what we're trying to do is we're trying to consolidate the business space for young business owners so that it's easier for them to, for example, apply for licenses. It's a pretty disparate workspace now. So yeah, that's the goal to make a better user experience. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Samantha.
Hi, my name is Chia, and I work on the sgID team in OGP. So what we do is that we try to expand the number of use cases for digital identity in Singapore. So just for more context, I think everyone here probably has a SingPass, and SingPass is really nice. It's really great in terms of the citizen user experience. I think people love it, but you don't actually get to use your SingPass that often, right? Like maybe when you're paying your taxes, or when you're setting up like a brokerage account, or interacting with financial institutions. And what we're really envisioning is a future where you can use your digital identity in a privacy preserving manner in all aspects of your life. So like for example, if you want to tap into this building, you want to access your WeWork, I feel like maybe like scan your phone or like tap your SingPass, and that works. So we're exploring why more businesses or government agencies have not onboarded on SingPass or like digital identity solutions, and exploring different engineering ways to solve them.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. So before we continue, I wanted to do a little bit of an audience participation, kind of a couple of questions so that we can better understand, where you guys from, what familiarity you have with software engineering. So first question for everyone. If you guys are software engineers, please raise your hands. Cool. Okay. Cool. And for folks who are not software engineers right now, are you guys in technology, the technology industry, or let's raise our hands? Okay. Cool. Very cool. So follow-up question. So how many folks here are familiar with the idea of cloud? Okay, cool. Yeah, so it seems like quite a few folks are in the tech industry, are software engineers, and are familiar with cloud. So the next question that we're going to ask our panelists to share is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you are working on or have worked on in maybe, let's say, the past 2 years? So we'll start with Chia, since I guess you have the mic.
So I think for me, it's probably helping MOH to automate their COVID case management systems. So this is basically like a year or so ago, September 2021. So we had like the Omicron outbreak, and this is the time where caseloads were spiking, and then MOH was like dropping cases. People are like calling MOH, and MOH like not picking up. And so basically this is happening because I think a lot of MOH's like COVID case management processes were manual, and because the spike in caseload, they couldn't deal with the COVID cases, and so we had to go in and kind of help them to automate their case management flows. And the real difficulty in this was, I guess, like going to this huge like organization, trying to understand all the different process flows that they had, the different triaging logic, like if someone is old, how do you deal with that? If someone is like baby, what do you do with them? And then kind of like understanding how this relates to policy, and using this kind of like, I guess, like knowledge, kind of coming up with a technical solution of like an infrastructure, and thinking, what are the tools we could use, what kind of architecture we should have to solve this problem. Yeah.
I guess, Preston, when you say like last 2 years, it's preempting like COVID. I mean,
No, it doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. Just recent experience. Yeah.
Well, okay. So for my project, I stayed on Go Business throughout the COVID period. But one thing we had to do, and I think a lot of the projects had to do, was to pivot the BAU things. So for example, Go Business was a platform for licensing, but during COVID, there was, for example, our circuit breaker, and there were like businesses were not allowed to go out. So they had to NTI had to sort of give exemptions to particular businesses to say, okay, you're allowed to go out at this date, at this date, at this date. So we pivoted the portal to become like an exemption portal where people could apply for exemptions and sort of say, okay, I can go out during this period. And then there was a whole different types of exemptions and various types of configurations. So that was one of the, I wouldn't say it's a huge, I mean, it was fulfilling in the sense that we knew we were helping MTI with something that they really needed help with. And it was something that had to be done quite quickly because like people's groceries were like rotting in their fridge because they couldn't get it and they couldn't go out. So yeah, I guess that was an interesting experience. Yeah, but moving forward in terms of challenges, I think probably a lot of challenges would be I think security-wise, how do we make ourselves more secure? That's for our citizens, that's one. And another is probably automating our back-end services so that there's less, it's just smoother and there's less sort of red tape throughout. Yeah.
Thanks. So reflecting on this, I think for us, as we set up this new outfit for doing cloud engineering work in HTB, one of the things that we discovered was it's not easy to get in people that already have these skill sets, right? And so, and also headcount is an issue. Right? Both government is also trying to cut down headcount. So as we went about the cloud migration, when we have quite a number of systems to do migration for, but then the headcount is quite limited. So how we thought about as we approach this capability is we wanted to be able to automate and make things as self-sustainable as possible. So some of the principles that we then adopt in our solution design, two of them, one of which is we try to make everything serverless as much as possible, because by going with serverless means we can minimize the overheads of doing maintenance, patchwork, and stuff like that. So this comes with its own set of challenges, which is that a lot of the workload is not really designed for like serverless compute. You have to be able to organize your deployment packages into sizable functions. You have to mitigate things like the cold starts. You have to do things like try to mitigate the kind of resources that you usually will provision once and use many times, but then in these times you have to keep repeating it, right? So these are just some of the challenges we face in our work. Also at the same time, we were looking at doing everything infrastructure as code, because doing everything infrastructure as code will help us minimize the maintenance as well, right? On how do we actually do deployment and stuff like that. So this comes with its own set of challenges in terms of the skill set, and in terms of trying to integrate with resources that requires manual kind of workflow, like for instance, the manual whitelisting of certain IP addresses and dynamically provisioned. So these are just some of the things that we have come across, and we I think reply to that, right? Yeah, thanks.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for myself, because like I mentioned, the project is a very big undertaking for IRAS. So actually, for me initially, I guess it was a learning curve. Because suddenly I had to start doing a new project with all the new technologies that I didn't even know about. So I had to do a lot of reading and training to get myself up to speed. But basically, we did have a phase where we did some POC. So that was a very great time for me to really pick up some of these things before we really did the actual thing. So I think for us, because due to the sheer size of the system, right, we had to break down the development into multiple phases. So I think some of the questions would then be, oh, how do we achieve coexistence, right? Because eventually, some point of time, right, half of your system will be live on the cloud, and half of the system will still be on the prem. So how do you then achieve a functional system where it looks like one system as a whole, but actually parts of it is on the cloud, parts of it is still on some very old technology? So I think for that, we had to make a lot of very interesting decisions, I would say. So we have a great team basically. So we always come together to discuss about issues, and we see how to then move forward with some of these things. And of course, the modernization doesn't only happen within the IT department. The business users also have to move together, right? So some of their thinkings may be outdated. So we also need to try to convince the users, hey, with this new technology, I can apply things like single sign-on. How do we then explain these concepts to them so that they can be on board with us? Because some of these things can also change how the business function to make things more efficient, rather than, in the past, everything is just one batch job, and then you run it at a certain time. But now everything can be real time. So it's about the whole organization moving together as well. So yeah, I think for us, that is the biggest challenge. Yeah, thanks.
Because I work in the call center, I support the call center. So when the COVID strikes Singapore, even way before Singapore government announced the circuit breaker, because traditional call center is using a physical IP phone. So the idea is, how do we move this call center operations to be able to function from home? So when the call center, even before the call center, even before circuit breaker hits, we begin the exploration of using soft phone for call center. So later part, DOS1 Orange, everybody panic. Then there are many changes in the instruction from the users. How many users will be working from home? How many people we need to support? So later, finally, when we move the operation to be able to function from home, we thought that things is already okay already. But daily, because of different difficulties, because some of our supporting customer service executive, they are not so tech savvy. So we have to teach them things like how to connect your computer to your house Wi-Fi, things like that. So that's within CPF. So later, few years later, which is 2021, MOH, because of the surge in the COVID call, so they seek help from CPF. So we have to come in to advise them how to, we come in with our system. So we are supporting about close to 20 agencies to run a call center with different agencies supporting the COVID hotline. So my whole team have to go down on site at this designated call center for supporting PSD for this COVID to support them. and same thing like the thing that we have to advise them how to run. So all this, all in all, is all about technology as well as to to address a security concern. We're gonna be opening up the system to everybody. So this is a security risk. So there are consideration about how do we let them use our system, but at the same time, it's secure enough. Yeah. So these are some of the challenges that we face. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing all the challenges that you face. The challenges are in software engineering, like we have a lot of work that's very complex, right? The systems that we work on are things that we can't build ourselves or think about ourselves, and then most of us work in teams. So my next question is, to make concrete what we do at work, what does your day or week as a software engineer look like? You can take reference to last week, what you did last week, or if you want to share a different week, it's entirely up to you.
So mainly I'll classify my daily work as 3 portions. One is the BAU, which is support the system to make sure that the system is running without any problem. So second thing is the change request, which is the one that is approved. And then we have to coordinate with we have to look at the timeline and make sure that things are implemented in time, in place, and according to the timeline. So that's the second portion. Then the third part to it is more on the technology exploration. So for example, maybe the call center, they say that, hey, maybe I want to explore something different. Then can you help me go and take a look, talk to people, and then engage different teams. So we are in contact with different service provider that they would say, hey, these are some of the features that we want to sell you. Then we have to come in and evaluate whether this can be implemented in the current system or maybe in the future pipeline.
Yeah, right. Cool. So three main portions of your day. The first being like BAU is like keeping systems running, making sure that administrations are working. The next one is change requests. So if there are requests from other ministry agency folks want to modify your system, am I saying that right? And finally, innovation.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, so for myself, I do quite a lot of things. So I guess being like a Scrum Master, so because our project is run on Agile, so we have the typical Scrum ceremonies and things like that.
So actually, what is a Scrum Master? And maybe explain Agile.
Whatever problem that you face, that your team face, you're supposed to get rid of the problem. Yeah, but I guess I also play more like a role of advisor. So whether is it from a technical angle, I think that I do that the most. So if there's some technical challenge that the team cannot do for their module, or if let's say the user has some business requirements that they don't know how to actually get it up and running within the new system, they will ask me like, oh, do we need a new table? What do we need to do to get this up and running? So I come from that angle to provide the advice. So we have a lot of discussions, whether is it within the team itself or across teams, because we are also doing microservices, right? So in terms of data communication, we are using Kafka integration events. So we also have to think of the type of event that we want to use, whether is it a command type or notification type and things like that, to really establish also certain foundations and standards that we can also then apply to the next phases of the system. So it's also trying to set up that base as well. So yeah, so mainly that's the kind of work that I do. And of course, for the next phase of the project, I'm also involved in part of the solutioning of various modules. Because this project is going to be a multi-year one, so we have a lot of work to do. And really it's about, because it's an enterprise system, so we also have to try to achieve some kind of consistency, especially because there's so many teams. We don't want every team to come out with their own way of doing certain things. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, thanks.
So last week I was actually in Las Vegas, so I good idea. But generally speaking, so we also adopt the Scrum approach. So it's basically an iterative approach. Iterative cycles of 2 weeks each. So at the start of each at the start of each sprint, so each 2-week cycle, there will be a sprint planning session. We work together, look at the product backlog, list of all the tasks and features that are outstanding, we take some of them, then put it inside the sprint backlog. So importantly, what we do is that we do not assign tasks to any individual on the team. We work on a team first mentality. So what happens is that we assign work only to the team itself, but not to the individuals. Then when the sprint actually starts, what happens is each of the software engineer on the team will volunteer based on their level of competency, their level of comfort in addressing some of these tasks. They will take on some of these tasks and then do it to completion. Because our office takes on quite an open configuration, so what happens is there's a lot of discussion between junior engineers, senior engineers, engineers working on different kind of tech stack and skill sets. So there will be discussion on what kind of solution to go about with it before the engineer actually works on that solution to completion. Then every day there is a daily stand-up. So the daily stand-up is about 15 minutes. People will just be updating on what they've been working on, what they're doing next, and also importantly, what the blockers are. That's when the Scrum Master comes in and try to resolve those blockers, right? So we do that as well. And then towards the end of the sprint, there is a sprint review session. So sprint review session is for each engineer to present their work, and then also learn from each other generally. Then after that, there's retrospective session for reflection, and then after that, there's technical backlog reflection. So typically, that's how it looks like as a software engineer initially.
Okay, I didn't know HDB was running sprints as well. So Chen Tong already took my answer. But yeah, maybe to expand on that. So apart from the sprint ceremonies that we also do a 2-week cycle. The idea is that you try and get as much done, or you make every cycle an iterable product. So every time after each 2 weeks, you get something that you can still ship out, can deliver to production. So that's the principle we work on. So the analogy is like the most common analogy is like rather than previously waterfalls, you build, for example, if you want to build a Ferrari, then you might build a very nice wheel, and then you build a very nice chassis, and then the engine and all that. But after you build a very nice wheel, you still can't ship the product, right? Because it's just the wheel. So agile is kind of, rather than building a Ferrari from the wheels, from the parts, you might build a skateboard first, and then after that you build a bicycle, and then after that you build a not so nice car, and then a nicer car, that sort of thing. Sorry, I'm not a spokesperson for Ferrari. Yeah, that's kind of the analogy. Yeah, and I guess another thing about our team is that maybe to pick up on Chen's point, so we don't really have divisions in terms of work. I mean, we do have UX designers, we have DMs, we have DMs being delivery managers, we also have product owners. But amongst the engineers, we have designations like DevOps engineer and software engineer. But our engineers are more or less expected to take on, for example, software engineers are expected to know how to deploy, how to use the pipeline, how to configure. So that's kind of the way we work. I mean, not all teams are like that. Some teams are a bit more, maybe like if you're on the platform team, then there's more like, infrastructure, there's more structure there. But yeah, that's our style.
Right. So I think in terms of what we do, so OGP has a lot of different products. So I think like the kind of work that you do depends, firstly on the type of product you're working on, and secondly, like I guess what stage of the product you're at. So like for example, if you're working on like a very citizen-facing product like Redeem, who made the CDC vouchers, you spend a lot of your time planning around like your user research, or if you want to release to citizens, like we actually have to firstly talk to like the merchants, like your HB hawkers or something, and see how they use the app. So you spend a lot of time on the user research and like external stakeholders. But if you're like kind of like more mature team, like Form SG, you probably have like a more routine kind of like weekly like agile kind of like setup. So I think in general we don't really we don't follow Scrum, but we follow like agile mostly, where we kind of target specific like milestones and priorities, and then we just try to work towards them. And the other thing is like what stage your product is at. So for example, if you're starting a new product and you're just trying to release an MVP, you don't have a typical day. You basically just do it until you get it out. And it's just like every day, let's just like just basically get things done, and like let's prioritize and then let's get things done. So every day is like different, but yeah, that's for like if you're like starting a new product. Like personally for me on the sgID team, I think in general also like our teams are quite small. So like the sgID team currently has like 3.5 people. So it's kind of meaningless to do like a sprint or like a scrum. We just kind of like have a weekly sync where we always kind of like reevaluate our priorities, what our next milestone or point is, and then like every week it's just kind of like a that does this make sense? It's something we come up, we have to reprioritize, and what are and always we kind of end off on like what are our deliverables for like next week, the next month, and like and so on. So yeah.
Right. So we're running out of time, so it's the final question for everyone. And so I think this is a very interesting question for me because I've been in government throughout my entire career as a software engineer. And I know some folks here have been in industry or done a PhD. So I wanted to know, how do I know if a career in engineering, software engineering in government is for me? So that's for you guys.
Right. So I've also worked in government my whole engineering career. So I guess the question is more of like, why am I still working in government as an engineer? I think there are a few points to this. I think the first point is that you really get to see the impact that you're making. You can see like your friends, your family, the people around you directly using your products. So like, for example, you have like your Trace Together, your Safe Entry, your vaccine appointment system. These are things that directly impact the lives, of other people in a good way. You're working on products that are just like good for the people around you. So it's very, very rewarding when you ship something and you see people actually use it and it's good. It's not like you're invading people's privacy. I think another dimension is that there's a technical challenge aspect to it, where like, for example, like how do you build a single sign-on system from scratch for government or like for Singaporean independence? And that's pretty complicated, right? And I think we're at the point where the products that we're building are becoming more complex and sophisticated, and so that the technical kind of challenge aspect that keeps you really engaged is there. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Chia. How do I add to that? I've been in industry before coming to government. I would say, I guess, and here's where I draw lines already. Like, I don't know about like HDB, IRAS, and CPF, but I think GovTech as a company it does really care for the employees' well-being when I compare with my previous companies. Like previous, and I'm not talking about your previous companies or your current companies, but I do feel like there is a lot of employee engagement. There's like family eating day, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's just corporate benefits, but government as a whole, yes, definitely is the impact. I think most of my colleagues who I see who stay in government are people who really actually it sounds cliche, but they actually kind of do care about citizens and what they want and what they need. Because otherwise you can't. It's quite a drag, right, to bring yourself to work and talk about all these things. So you really do see people who actually care about people, other people in Singapore or others or other countries even. So that's one thing you can ask yourself: do I care about this kind of work? And it's something that would resonate within your family, because maybe your grandma has to go for an appointment or something like that, and then she's using the system that you built, or you help to make that system a bit better or easier for her, or maybe your aunt is buying a house or something like that, and you help to make that system smoother. So I think those are definitely rewards that people take back. I think after that, technically, yeah, there's some very unique challenges in government, like Jiehao mentioned. Maybe if you're in an outside industry job, you don't have to worry so much about citizen privacy. You don't have such a critical data, maybe. So these are some things that would be of interest to you.
Thanks. Yeah, don't need to draw the line, I think. Yeah, but I think that one aspect that I noticed, talking to some people from the industry, I have been with HDB in my entire career, 6 years so far. I think one thing that I've realized from the industry is that I don't think they make the learning like very structured, because everything is profit motive, right? So if you don't have to learn something, you don't get to learn. Whereas within HDB at least, we have training days that is defined and set out. So every year you have these number of training days, you look at the projects that you're about to take on, or just areas of your interest, and then you go for these training days and it's sponsored. So that's one aspect, the capability development and learning I thought was pretty good. But other than that, I thought that honestly speaking, working in government or working in a large private enterprise is pretty similar. I think that in terms of the controls, the red tapes and stuff, they're all in place, right? But one thing that is different, I thought, is the motivation. Working in government, you get to be freed from the profit motive. So along with what two other speakers have already mentioned. And so you can really focus on features and understanding whether they actually help the end customers or not, without considering whether it's profitable or not. So I thought, depending on where you stand, I personally find that it's quite meaningful.
Thanks. I think we are all pro-government here. I also, since graduation until now, my first job in IRAS, and I'm still here. I think they all brought up relatively good points. For IRAS, we also have a lot of training that you are kind of forced to go every year. So you can go and get your professional certifications and it's all covered. So it's actually pretty good. And also, I think, I mean, contrary to popular belief, I think some people tend to think that, you go government, probably you're going to work on some very old system and then you do some kind of maintenance work. I mean, that was what I thought as well. And then like my mother will say, TFN1, iron rice bowl, right? So I went in with that thought as well, but I was wrong, right? So I have done many projects within IRAS. Initially, yes, of course, I did on the old system, right? .NET framework. Then after that, I had many opportunities to try out new initiatives, right? So I did like the new IRAS API marketplace, and then I moved on to some POCs where we did some geofencing, and I even got to play with some beacons and things like that. So a lot of interesting things that we can do. And of course, my current project, which is 100% cloud native. So I think apart from that, you get to work within not just with the IRAS people, because as a government, we also work a lot with other agencies, and as well as like private companies like Accenture and NCS and all that. So you actually get to work with a lot of smart people out there, and then you get to see many perspectives as well. So I think as a whole, you get to learn a lot from a lot of people. So I think learning from people is the best way to learn something, rather than you just attend some online course and things like that, because those people come from experience, and then they will already have a better way of doing things and things like that. Yeah. So yeah. Thanks.
Right. So actually my first job is with a private company. So I think there's no government there. I mean, in terms of there's no structure. So that's why I left them. So I joined IRAS. Then now I'm with CPF. So a lot of people talk about the red tape that government have, right? It's very restrictive, all that. But actually it forms a guideline for you to help you in your daily job. There are certain standards that you need to follow, which I think for OCD people like me is very, very easy. I mean, I just follow, like it's quite helpful for me. So that's in terms of the so-called red tapes. That's one thing, but in terms of challenges, it's no joke. Really, like when you're required, you really have to dive in and then study and then implement. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think it's the culture that we have. So I can speak for both IRAS and CPF. The culture that we have is very friendly, very helpful. When you just say I need help, then definitely there will be people that is there to help you. I think that's one thing. But want to advertise a bit on CPF lah. So I think it's not just the team, cross department also, and then even for your supervisor is very close to you. You have your supervisor sitting next to you and say, hey, how's things are, how is it? There are constant communication, rather than you just keep quiet, then you just I'm doing things, boss don't know what I'm doing, things like that. So there's constant communication and follow-ups. I think that's helpful in terms of your growth. Then your boss will say, hey, your face a bit like look very sad or look very stressed. Then I say, hey, what happened to you? Then I say, got some problem. Then come meeting room. The boss is readily there for you. I think that's one of the things that motivates me, and then I still come here. mean, not saying something bad about IRAS, but I like IRAS, but in terms of the job scope, so I think I seek a different type of job scope. So which is why I approached CPF and gladly that they accepted me. Right, thanks.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing, about your work. And clearly, they're very passionate about public service and the various technologies that we work on, NLP to cloud native work, deployments, infrastructure, and public-facing, citizen-facing applications. So please, we're going on to the networking session. So please just reach out to any of our speakers and talk to them about the work that they do and ask questions.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for staying on for more Q&As online. So my name's Alwyn, and I'm a software engineer with Open Government Products, and I'm joined with my colleagues across government, who I would like them to introduce themselves, maybe beginning from the front of the table and then going around.
Samantha, from Government Digital Services, GovTech, a software engineer.
Right. I'm Marcus. I'm from the Digital and Intelligence Service. I work on various digitalization projects, not as an engineer, but sort of like as a project manager in some way. I have my colleague Paul online as well.
Hi, my name is Wong. I'm a software engineer with HTTP.
Hi, this is Kumar here. I'm a software engineer, but currently a senior manager at MOS, CSOC. We're doing all system for testing operations, like job registrations, control centers, everything. But we're managing the vendors.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Ho Sing. I have with me my colleague David. So both of us we are from IRAS, and like what my colleague Runguang has shared, we have a branch set up to look at the transformation, modernizations of our current taxation system. So both of us has that branch. Yeah. Over to you.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm from Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore. I'm actually from HR, but you can feel free to ask me questions. I'll try my best because actually most of my colleagues from the line are on leave because it's December. Yeah. So feel free to just ask it. I'm not sure I can just take back the question and ask my colleagues.
All right. Thank you, everybody. It's now 8 p.m. I realize we were running a little bit over time. I will try to keep this maybe to 20 minutes, and then you guys can go off. We can all then go off for networking. I'm going to start a question addressed to the software engineers. So if you can change anything about the software engineering work in the government that you're doing, what will you change? Sam.
Yeah, that's a good question. What will I change? I guess I alluded to it during the panel discussion, which is sometimes there's there is red tape, but I won't say I think we are moving. We acknowledge that there is, and then I think all agencies do acknowledge that there is red tape, and it's something that we're working towards to overcome. So like how do we what is the minimum amount of things that we do that can satisfy the requirement, rather than you're just slapping it with more and more sort of random sort of requirements that maybe no one knows what is the purpose of, and it kind of slows down development. So I think that's one thing that I would change. I don't think that I would change the way we're going about it, but that's something that we are changing.
Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of prompted me to join GovTech before we spun out as OGP was the fact that GovTech was quite focused on obtaining outcomes rather than adhering to processes. I think that was one of the things that I felt was quite something that appealed to me. So yeah.
So now's the time, right? Now's the time to join government. Yeah.
Indeed. Maybe could I get a response from one of the other software engineers in the room?
Okay. I guess in general, it's not so much about what wanting to change. It's probably a new milestone in the IT sector, right? there was a period of time where people build data center, people say that waterfall is the only way to go. All your academic curriculum goes around the same things and topics. So in general, but then now is a time and age where things are worked differently. There's new concept, new mentality, new technology, and stuff like that. So pretty much it's about the driving factor to really leverage on this new wave of technology and new ways of doing things. Then who bring along your colleagues or other counterparts that are very into how things work previously, along with you into the new peak or S-curve of technology. But yeah, that's all.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that. So maybe let's maybe move on to more general questions. What kind of training opportunities are available for engineers, and what's the ratio of senior to junior engineers at your respective organizations?
This IRAS here, posting here from IRAS. So over at the IRAS, we do have a series of training programs for our software engineers. Knowing the different spectrum, junior software engineer, senior software engineer, and because our software engineer also cover different aspects of our product range. We have Angular, .NET. We do have people trained in the Microsoft D365 things like that. So we do send our folks to attend series of training, Azure training, Microsoft training, and so on. And we always encourage them to go for the certification. So over time, we have gained that kind of the training base and also the certification that we encourage our staff to go for. From the junior software engineer, these are the series of junior foundational fundamental kind of course that they will attend, to the more senior course. And as their experience progress, we will encourage our software engineers to take up solution architect course. So in a way, it's really a progressive path that encourage them to take the relevant certification, gain a progressive experience, and progress themselves to their architect level. Yeah, that's our mission.
Okay, thanks a lot. Sorry, what other responses?
Maybe I'll share a bit as well about the IRAS. Actually, something that really strikes me about the digital intelligence service is that we have a pool of engineers, but we actually also have a pool of very interested practitioners who may have joined us as a military personnel. And this really drives our training culture, because we are saying that we want a culture of innovation. Even someone uniform like me can get trained, can get involved in digitalization. So I'm a military intelligence analyst, but I have a passion for digitalizing our processes, and I've been sponsored to go on a DevOps course, actually, online course. And really, I think for the people who are more technically adept, we spend more effort. We build partnership opportunities, get secondments, attachments for them, and we also do sponsor them for relevant policy.
Yeah, it is quite important as software engineers to actually explore the domain that we have, right? Because because the way it works, that's the only way we can actually keep our tools sharp, isn't it? For OGP, the training programs and opportunities that we have tends to be a little bit more ad hoc in nature, because we're part of GovTech. There is a training budget that we can tap on, and on top of that, we kind of try to set aside Fridays to focus on learning and actually exploring things. And so I thought that that might add some color to like what learning looks like from various organizations. Okay, let's move on. Joey Ko, thank you for this question. So this question is for somebody who has worked for a startup or scale up, and for somebody who has kind of worked for a FANG company. Do we have such people in the room at all? Okay, good.
I'm posting. prior to joining IRAS, I was with NCS, and before NCS, I was with HP. And before that, I was during the year 2000, the dot-com days. So for myself during those days, I also followed the trend. Went out to then set up a company, the internet company, and so on. So that was the experience that I have. Yeah. So the question that you're asking. So I believe the first question you're asking is, in that case, what about the culture? Okay. So for me, for myself, I involved in setting up my own company. Okay. And also have the experience in working in companies like HP as well as NCS, and comparing that with IRAS. Initially, when I joined IRAS, I also thinking, okay, it's going to be a government, things will be very rigid, and it's going to be dealing with all the legacy systems, and my exposure, my limitation will be very limited. But it turned out to be not that case, because IRAS has always been, one thing is because we have those good leadership who always think very differently. Okay, in IRAS, in the old days, if you all remember, IRAS got to fill a lot of those forms. The thinking is always that we require people to fill up a lot of things, and a system will then do a lot of heavy enforcement to really catch people, things like that. But the kind of mindset has shifted, that we eventually move towards going with the filing count system, no filing system. Right now, for some of you, you don't even need to go file. Your employer file on your behalf, and that's it. Also, it's really a big shift in that kind of thing. So in a way, the culture is driven from the management, okay, and that allows us to have the leeway and flexibility in innovatively coming out with a solution which they are open to that. And the other thing perhaps I wanted to add on is that for IRAS, when I just joined at the time, it's still very formal. We all have to wear formal attire, things like that. But over the years, I think that has changed. In fact, the entire IRAS, we started with our Infocom divisions, where all of us dressed down. Okay? But then eventually that was separated to the rest of the division. So the entire IRAS, everyone will dress down unless we need to meet external parties, things like that. Okay, all right. Is there any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, that is actually a multi-part question. So thanks a lot for taking this on. So maybe other bits, right? What's something from your prior experiences that you hope your agency would adopt?
Maybe I'll take this one. So
okay, yeah, sure.
I think when this question is coming from is like, if I read it correctly, is will the pace in government be a bit slower than outside? So I think one thing that don't need to worry about is that we do iterate very quickly. So we have like 2 sprints. So those we are meant to sort of deliver some product out. So every 2 weeks, you should have some improvement over your product. So I would say that there is definitely you definitely be moving at a good pace. It might not be like a burning midnight oil every for 7 days a week kind of thing, but it's definitely a pace that's not like you're sleeping on the job. Then addendum to that, because you're working on these projects and working on new features, then naturally you also be learning. So I think hopefully that covers the third point, which is what's the pace of learning. Compared to prior experience, for me, I would say it's actually you do learn also. I wouldn't say it's anything less than my prior experience. It's up to you, because it's up to you what you want to learn and how you want to learn it. So because there is projects, because there are activities, as long as you're working on something that you're interested in, then that's where you can learn and that's where you can grow. And the lovely thing about government, as all my colleagues have mentioned, is that we are given a lot of resources to do learning. So there's definitely something that you don't have to worry about.
Okay, and I think there's one remaining part of that question. What's the drive like among your colleagues? Like, what's the vibe like? Especially since this is like a organization that's not really driven by the profit motive or by revenue. Right?
I think my colleagues they're all quite young young, I mean, not all of us are young, but like, they are young and like, as in that, I would say people are still very active and like you see, Insane over there.
Yes.
Posting over there, see how active he is, that's why, that's how you don't want to run out so early in your career, right? That's how you keep the fire going throughout. So, definitely it's a very collegiate environment. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I think we are good to with this question. Let's move on. How are projects created or prioritized, especially those which are not related to COVID? Like, are these like typically crowdsourced or initiated by some other team, or if it's none of those things, like how do you actually come up with new products? Anybody want to take this first? Anybody wants to take this first?
Maybe I'll go first. So within HDB, we have, I'm not sure if the audience or maybe even the panel here knows that the business of HDB is actually very wide. HDB stands for housing and development. So we don't only build houses. We have commercial properties. Even the landfill project within Singapore is all managed by HDB. We have pretty much building towns and building communities and a lot of outreach. So pretty much all our work that we've done within HDB are all packaged into business processes. So we have a very well managed clarity of all the requirements that HDB needs to handle, and we have packed them nicely into this. So with these business processes, we are then able to come up with all the different products that we aim to deliver, both citizen facing as well as to manage the back end office for handling transactions, handling forms. So with that, pretty much throughout the whole organization, these are then prioritized and solutions are all aggregated, trying to improve the processes of all these different processes, ensuring that both the community, the citizens, as well as the back end office is able to work and get the information that they need a little bit more efficient. Hence, I don't know if you all also noted that our HDB processes has always been involving things like your sales process has been how 18 months cut to 6 months and sort of things. So all this is through all these process re-engineering as outcome and prioritization. That's pretty much.
Cool.
CS is the same. We do have like air traffic management systems, surveillance systems. All these are like our bread and butter. So it's not just because of COVID that we have this project. Yeah, and then when we have the system, it's just not about like how do we automate this and that. Is another thing that we have at the back of our mind is safety. Number one is safety because we are in aviation. So there are different considerations to think about when we have a new system or when we want to improve our system. There's always room to improve.
Thank you for that. So maybe I will round off the answer by talking a little bit from OGP's perspective. So, I kind of describe our division as basically the VC incubator for the government. So a lot of the products that we actually come up to for public officers tend to be thought up by ourselves. So we are the ones who would like go down to talk to private citizens or tap our networks throughout government to identify opportunities and pain points in the government, which we can try to address with, like, say, a simple solution, like, say, a form builder or a static website builder. We do take commissions from agencies who might approach us from time to time, who may need help with something. The Ministry of Health coming to us to help with our vaccination operations. With the vaccination operations, that's probably the most prominent example where we actually helped an agency with their help request rather than like coming to them with a product to pitch. Cool. Thanks a lot. Okay. So thanks everybody for answering that question. I'm going to go take a gamble and try to answer 3 questions in one go. So is it possible to be trying out for a role that I have no experience in? And for somebody who has a career switch to the IT industry and has obtained the relevant certifications in system analysis, like what roles do you have for such people? And how important is it to have a university degree to be able to work in the government sector? How far can a non-degree holder go in their long-term career?
I'm David. I'll take your first question.
They're kind of related, right? So
and maybe the first two. I'll try. So for me, I'm a software engineer in IRAS. However, I've been given lots of opportunities to actually wear multiple hats. Right, I was given the opportunity to go beyond just as a software engineer. Engineers, I also was given an opportunity to go with DevOps, like DevOps and security, and sometimes play a role of designer where I had an architect. So definitely there are plenty of roles that's being given, right? And if you are afraid that you join us with new rules and you're still finding a bearing, fret not, because as Boss has mentioned, right, we place high priority and building the competencies of our staff, right? So you definitely will send you to for the relevant trainings to be your competencies. So basically, in short, yes, you will be able to try out a new role that you have no experience on, right? So how is a career progression like? So we start from as an engineer, junior engineer, and then you progress to software engineers, and it depends on what kind of career path that you want to set. If you want to go via technical path, maybe Paul can correct me later, or extend more. So if I want to go to career path, then yes, we will go more on like a designer, architect role. But if you want to go after a more management role, then you go say Scrum Masters and become a project manager, that kind. Yeah. So for number 3, I will probably leave it to the rest of my colleagues to take on that question. Thanks.
Yeah, maybe I'll throw in a few things as well. I think in DIS, we actually do have a lot of different projects ongoing, and I don't know what kind of role you might be trying out that you have no experience in, but probably, you know, if you interview well, you meet our requirements, there's probably going to be a role for you. We have roles in like natural language processing, computer vision, systems engineering, and not how to deliver those AI solutions or analysts or customers generally in DIS. And I think we have a bigger mission of also architecting data for the SAS, really getting the intelligence insights down to the soldiers which are defending our borders. So yeah, I think you are welcome to try with us, even UI UX or whatever. Then I think career progression for us is really something that we are looking at in terms of modernizing this aspect. You know, traditionally, like you might not think like the military has a very exciting career progression, but specifically, I mean, I'm currently in the HR plans and policy role right now, and I'm actively looking at this area. And what we've already done is we've carved out career progression for engineers, so you can progress just like how you would in the private industry, from software engineer to senior engineer, and so on and so forth. So probably your experience here will be very transferable outside as well. Yeah, and I would say that we are moving away from needing a degree to be able to work with us. Yeah, and really, I think in the industry now it's really about a competency, and that's where we are going to as well.
All right. Thank you so much for the answers you kind of made. The next question is actually something that you kind of briefly touched on concerning career progression. I don't know whether there's anything else you want to add or anybody else in the room want to comment about concerning that.
Other than what my colleague from IRAS mentioned about the specialist track or the management track. In addition to that, if you like to try other areas in the organization like CAS, then you could apply for rotation. Yeah, you could even do something totally unrelated like HR. Yeah, you're always welcome to try. And also, we do have secondments to other public agencies or even to private companies like Singapore Airlines.
Cool. Maybe I'll just comment briefly about like how OGP does its career progression. So we do have career schemas that are kind of modeled after the equivalents in big tech, and as one of the distinguishing features about the software engineer career track in in OGP is that we recognize this this idea of like individual contributors and engineering managers, very much like the rest of big tech. So to that end, there are two separate tracks after when you reach the equivalent of lead software engineer. So past that point, you can actually start to choose whether you want to continue being a IC or you want to like take on maybe broader, softer aspects of leadership through the EM role. And so examples of that include like figuring out our hiring pipeline, figuring out things like say performance and leveling, and actually taking on direct reports. So yeah, that's pretty much what I can talk about with regards to career progression. So we've got like 3 questions from James Go. I think, let's see. We've kind of briefly touch on his first 2 questions. So maybe I'm going to take a look at the 3rd question, which probably would be the interesting one. Do all government services utilize in-house built cloud services? Are the cloud providers like AWS and Azure used by any agencies? Maybe we'll start with Sam.
This is the easy one, definitely. My team uses it, and outside the whole. Yeah, GCC. So
and what's GCC for the benefit of our audience here?
Government commercial cloud. Thanks. Yeah, so we definitely have very strategic partnerships with all of these major cloud providers. Yeah. And so this was the cloud one, right? Yeah. And then the other one about, is it easy to explore and integrate new technologies? Yeah. I would say our engineers do find time to sort of to optimize the workflow. They might use some plugin, or maybe not plugin, but put up a new tool or something that would help them in their day. Yeah, so there's plenty of opportunities to explore different things or different clients, whether it's your own workflow or that's
cool. Sorry, anybody else? IRAS.
For us, definitely we have a process, right, to bring in the new technology. We also have an established deployed architecture review board. So we are very open to new technologies, and if you want to integrate, we have to go through the whole review board and why this technology has to be introduced and what are the values that it brings, right, to the organization as a whole. So for us, definitely we can't actually we are open to new technology. We are exploring and tapping into all this modern technology, and there is a process to bring it in, right? And moreover, I think our C-level management and senior management, they all embraces technology, and they see technology as the key enabler, right, for us to deliver a taxpayer-centric application system, and for us to empower our internal staff. Yeah, I hope
Thank you for that. I think we just have time for one more question. So I'm going to pick the one which I think is will be quite important to the asker. So first, thank you for your courage for asking this question. This person is currently 35 years old, and he has a hotel and tourism degree. What kind of advice can you give as software engineers to this person, so that what does he need? What does he need to do in order to break into software engineering as a career?
Hire people who come from general assembly. So I don't know how many people have thought of general assembly, but it's sometimes like a boot camp for folks who want to do a mid-career transition. So there are people who just have been doing something completely different, and then they decide they want to do UI UX, or they decide they want to become a front-end engineer. So and they go for like a 6 months camp kind of thing. So okay, a 6-month camp is not going to replace a degree in terms of like you won't be going to maybe algorithms and things like that, but it does get you up and running in terms of being able to help the team with delivering features. So that, and as we have all acknowledged, right, what we care about is whether or not you can bring your expertise or your your craftsmanship to the team now, and that's what matters. So I think that could be one way to go about it. It won't be like maybe it might involve you taking like a year to go and do this sort of thing, and then coming in. So it will take some sort of like maybe like your whole feet wet into this new environment. But it's it's been done. And I actually wanted to answer the other question about the age limit. So definitely we don't have, sorry, I didn't mean to say like everyone is like, must be a certain age, that is definitely not true. I must correct that now. So there's definitely no, and when we are hiring, we definitely don't say, oh, this person is too old or too young. That's definitely not. I think it's whether or not you have the skill sets and whether you are interested in this field of work. I mean, of course, you cannot just be like, I'm interested and then hire me. But you need the skill sets. And to gain those skill sets, you can either do a normal university degree, but that's definitely not the only way. Like just now, I mentioned about General Assembly, and that's not the only way. There are a lot of online courses, plenty of them. That and I think one thing I would recommend is people to start building a portfolio. So you can start out your journey like something like my first website. And then from there, you do it, and maybe your first project can be a website for yourself. And from there, you can add in things like little projects that you do. So that's already a way to sort of advertise yourself and say, and when you go to your next hiring person, you can say, hey, this is a website that I coded. I did all the projects that I did in so and so software. And you can check out what's the latest technologies that you want to work on, right? And use those technologies in your projects. So that's an excellent way of getting hired because people can see this is the work that you did. And another tip is always have a GitHub, like put in your GitHub link inside your resume. Don't give me like a bunch of like, I don't know, I did this, I did that. Just give me the GitHub and people will go inside and see, okay, what have you done? What's the code that you have written?
Yeah, thank you for that comprehensive answer, Sam. I think the only thing I would probably signpost right now is that if you're a Singapore resident, you basically have access to the National Library, right? And it's not just library resources itself, but like also you can also access paid for courses on Udemy using your National Library account. So that's so if you want the URL, it's nlbsg.udemy.com. So if you visit that site, you can actually use your National Library account to log in, and then once you've done that, a lot of the paid for courses, including a lot of the programming bootcamp courses, actually become free and pretty much paid for by the National Library Board. So that's also one very important resource that you could take advantage of in order to help you with your transition into software engineering. All right, Sam, sorry, say again.
Udemy is a great resource and it's free, so there's no excuse. And we're not okay. By the way, I'm not selling any like particular course, so please don't say, oh yeah, I know for this course. But Udemy, yeah, definitely take advantage of the free resources.
All right, we are at time. Ladies and gentlemen in the room, thank you so much for offering your insight and for the answers that you've made to the questions. Attendees, thank you so much for being part of this session tonight. Yeah, if you want to keep in touch, techhiring.open.gov.sg, that's the website which will list all the various roles that are available in government. And follow us on our respective LinkedIn company pages. So that's it for now. This is Elwin Tan, software engineer, signing off. And everybody have a good evening. Take care.